What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the television airwaves, radio airwaves of ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you nationwide, 250-plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM dial nearest you, plus ESPN radios on Sirius XM. Channel 80, also ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks. No contracts. Got a lot of stuff to get into today. Landon Collins for the New York Giants has been informed he will not be franchise tagged, basically putting him on a free agent market, according to sources. Leaves a lot of questions about what the hell the New York Giants were thinking about doing. Even though they could still re-sign him, they could still take care of him and keep him in tow. Bottom line is that he's scheduled to be a free agent. I don't know how wise that was on the part of the New York Giants. Why the hell you didn't trade him last year if you knew you was going to do this? Makes no sense whatsoever. But we'll get into that as the show progresses today. I got to tell y'all this. And I just got to say this because it's very, very important that I get this off my chest. I cannot wait for baseball season to start. Being a native New Yorker, knowing what the expectations are for the New York Yankees, whether it's because of Judge or Stanton, whether it's because of Happ, the new lefty Paxton, or CeCe Sabathia returning for a swan song, no matter what the situation is, I'm praying for the New York Yankees because there is no good news coming out of New York City for sports. No good news whatsoever. When you listen to Kyrie and you listen to Kevin Durant and you listen to Jeannie Buss and everybody else in between complaining about the media and beyond, if you complain about the media anywhere else, imagine how you'll complain about them in New York City. So the Yankees are the only thing that gives me any hope that New York City will have any reason to celebrate. But I digress because I'm in L.A. And being in L.A., I was at the Staples Center last night. And if you're a Clippers fan, you got a lot to be happy about. You beat the Los Angeles Lakers last night. You've essentially ensured they will not be a playoff team this year. You're 37-29. You're 8 games over 500. You're in the 8th slot for the playoff picture. If the players were to begin today, the 7th slot. If the players were to begin today, you'd be going against the Denver Nuggets. You do not have a star. You do not have a marquee star. You don't have any of that going on for you. Yet Doc Rivers has done an exceptional job coaching. The players have done an exceptional job playing. They got a bunch of Rough Riders on there. Ain't scared of anybody. They beat the Los Angeles Lakers last night. They made sure to remind me that they'll have enough space for 2 max players. They're going to move into a new arena within the next 4 to 5 years. You got a billionaire owner. You got an executive as a consultant in Jerry West, who is universally recognized as arguably the greatest executive in the history of basketball. This side of Red Auerbach. You got a coach in Doc Rivers, assuming he stays. You got a billionaire owner worth $22 billion to be exact. The upside for the Clippers is good. The Lakers are an entirely different story. What a disaster that has taken place before our very eyes. And I'm not going to lie to you. Last night, I didn't feel the need to be critical of LeBron James, nor do I today. Ladies and gentlemen, my heart goes out to him. I watched this man throw the ball to open players, Kuzma, before he got hurt. Bullock. Rondo played well last night. Had a triple-double, actually. Hart made a contribution, but not as consistently as we may have liked. JaVale McGee got bullied. Montrezl Harrell came into the game and just bullied him so badly. You had Luke Walton calling timeouts in frustration. You had LeBron James sucking his teeth and rolling his eyes at JaVale McGee. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? What's going on? At one point, several times, LeBron was playing the 5. Because everybody else was just getting pushed around. And it's not the first time we've seen the Lakers suffer at the hands of somebody who's bigger, badder, and meaner. Julius Randle did it to them when New Orleans came into town. Anybody who's physical, that has a decent amount of size on the Los Angeles Lakers, the Lakers end up getting punked. Tyson Chandler can't play next strain. This kid Zubac that the Lakers traded for some dude named Muscala. Supposedly he could shoot. I didn't see it. Supposedly he could play. I didn't see it. But the Lakers traded for him, and traded away a 21-year-old center with a big body and skills to the team sharing the damn building and the city with him. I mean, you just can't make this up. You just can't make this up. I mean, this is unbelievable. You look at the Lakers right now, it's hard to put into words. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's a mess. From the top on down. Now, I'm not going to be too critical of Miss Jeannie Buss. I did not agree with her statement at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, where she talked about the media and fake news. I think Bill Plaschke for the Los Angeles Times is going to have something to say about her with that. But I would say, as I respectfully, because I definitely do respect her a great deal, I would say respectfully, she needs to distinguish between the media and the blogosphere. Social media and bloggers who don't have editors and don't have anybody to answer to as it pertains to their coverage of respective athletes and teams is entirely different than the media. And the media in this town has been incredibly fair to Jeannie Buss and the Lakers. Incredibly fair to her. The Los Angeles Lakers haven't been in the playoffs in 5 years. As of 2 weeks from now, it'll be 6. Hell with that. It is 6 already. Because I said it officially last night. This season's over. I mean, I have to wait a couple weeks. But they've been incredibly fair to Jeannie Buss. And she's a wonderful person. No malice intent. Her heart's in the right place. She's thinking about the players that are on that squad. She looks at them as kids affectionately, of course. Whose mental approach, whose mindset needs to be protected. Her heart's in the right place. But she was wrong with what she said because Magic was quoted. We were talking to the Pelicans. We didn't believe they negotiated in good faith. LeBron's been quoted, I think I'd very much like to play with Anthony Davis. We all know what time it is. And you look at this roster and the way that they played. They can't close. They can't finish. And outside of pointing fingers too demonstrably in public towards his teammates at times, which LeBron James has been known to do. The biggest thing that we haven't talked about when it comes to LeBron James, my God, my brother, what happened to your free throw shooting? I mean, he hit 8 of 12 last night, around 66%. That's what he's been shooting for the season. I mean, come on. LeBron coming into the season was like a career 73% shooter, which wasn't that damn impressive. Now you've dissipated or diminished to 66%. I mean, come on. Damon Jones is looking for work. Former sharpshooter in the NBA, friend of LeBron James. By the way, one would argue some of LeBron James' best shooting is when Damon Jones was around. Coaching. I mean, do something. This is one of the things that has ailed LeBron James periodically for years. First, it was his fear over his inability to make free throws. So as a result, he was scared to go to the free throw line, and he would lean on perimeter shots. Then he overcame that fear, and in some instances made clutch free throws, which he deserves a lot of credit for. And now it's not about fear or anything like that. He's just missing. Lakers go on a run, they foul LeBron, he goes to the free throw line, always misses at least one. Sometimes two. Against Phoenix Saturday night, against the Clippers last night, and many other occasions this season. Make your damn free throws. You ain't Shaq or Wilt Chamberlain. Make your damn free throws. But that's about it. Other than that, I'm not going to look at him. We talk about these young kids for the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, it's bad. We want to talk about the injury bug. Okay, that's fine. But the bottom line is there has been a collapse since Christmas Day. It started with LeBron James getting hurt and missing 18 games, but it continued once he came back. Healthy or unhealthy, since Christmas, the Lakers have been a shell of themselves. They've gone from the 4th seed to the 10th seed. They've gone from being destined to knock off somebody to the playoffs to not even getting there. And on top of it all, they lost to the Clippers. And ladies and gentlemen, I got news for you. They're losing to the Clippers in more ways than one. We hear about acrimony and dysfunctionality in the Lakers organization. We ain't hearing none of that about the Clippers. We're not hearing any of that about the Clippers. You got a billionaire in Steve Ballmer who's got arguably the greatest executive in the history of the sport as his right hand, and the man who's directly in his ear in Jerry West, who, by the way, wants to compete against Magic and the Lakers more than anybody on the planet. We got Doc Rivers coaching his butt off. We got Lawrence Frank and his crew manning things in the front office. You don't hear about any drama. Lakers may get headlines, Clippers getting W's. And oh, by the way, before long, the way things are looking, the reason why the Lakers are in danger of losing more is because the Clippers might win the headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, the Los Angeles Clippers do not have a star. They have everything else. I can't think of a weakness they have. I mean, even from a public relations standpoint, PR, media relations, whatever you want to call it. I ain't going to give anybody the edge over the Lakers because I love me some Allison Bogley and her staff. They're wonderful. But even with the Clippers, you got my man Chris Wallace, who I go back years with. He's one of the best in the business at what he does. They don't have a weakness in the Clippers organization right now. And they're going to have space for 2 max players. They think they're getting 2 guys. Not 1, 2. With Gilgeous-Alexander, with Patrick Beverly, with Gallinari, with Harrell, with Lou Williams, Mr. Energizer Bunny scoring, but see, he's a professional scorer, by the way. Coming off the bench. Reasonable contracts. And this is the stepchild to the Lakers. They don't even have their own arena yet. And look at them. It's the same situation with Brooklyn in New York We all talking about the Knicks. Excuse me. I understand it's a huge detriment, and it could end up working against the Brooklyn Nets. I'm talking about the traffic in Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, which ain't appealing to a damn soul. Rats and roaches look for a different path in Brooklyn. It's so damn congested on Atlantic Avenue. But I'll tell you something. To not have any stars and to play the way that they have played this year, Sean Marks, Kenny Atkinson, and those boys, they're doing something nice in Brooklyn. And if you think for 1 second that they don't have a shot at getting somebody to come to Brooklyn, you are sadly mistaken. I have spoken to folks about the Kevin Durants, the Kyries of the world, and others. Everybody talking about them going to the New York Knicks. Everybody said, you know what they said to me? You know what folks have said to me? Excuse me, we said New York. Who said the Knicks? There's only one other team in New York. You can't rule out anything. I mean, this is some serious stuff. In the two largest markets in the United States of America, with two brands, although they haven't been winning in a long time, still synonymous with the sport and worth billions. Because if the Clippers were purchased for $2 billion, could you imagine what the Knicks are worth? Could you imagine what the Lakers are worth? If Steve Ballmer paid $2 billion for the Clippers, how much do you think the Lakers would sell for? How much do you think the Knicks would sell for? Yet you have the Lakers and the Knicks, both worth north of $3.5 to $4 billion. They may lose out to the Nets and the Clippers. This is not a joke. I am not playing. Yes, I sit in studio doing First Take. Yes, I sit on a radio show doing what I do. Yes, I'm stuck in studio a lot. But you don't see people who's on TV and on radio as much as I am, also in that arena as much as I am. I ain't going to brag about skills. I ain't going to brag about all of this other stuff. But you know what I will brag about? My work ethic. Ain't too many damn people on this planet outwork me. That I will brag about. And I'm telling you, I don't go to no damn games to sit there and just watch games. When I go to the arena, I'm always talking to folks. I move. Just like that. It's what I do. And I'm telling you, this summer, the Nets and the Clippers are seriously threatening to get in the way of the Lakers and the Knicks. This is no joke. And I'm telling you what I know. So I'm just asking all of yous, to pay attention. Because this stuff is getting serious. If you're LeBron James, narrative keeps changing, listening to his camp. And I hope they're listening. Narrative keeps changing. Oh, man, this roster works. You got guys that can play the point, guys that can handle the rock, handle the responsibility. So LeBron doesn't want to have the ball. So LeBron doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. He doesn't want the ball in his hands anyway. You can leave that to somebody else. Take the load off of his shoulders. The roster's great. Now, look who he's playing with. He ain't got nobody. I mean, damn, he's only one person. This ain't tennis. He can't do it by himself. Stephen A., come on, man. 1 minute the Lakers are priority, the next minute it's Space Jam. You know that movie that Michael Jordan did? Sequel's coming out in 2020. It starred Michael Jordan years ago. Now it's going to star LeBron James, who, by the way, I'm here to predict will do a phenomenal job. LeBron James got skills. And I forgot the name of the movie. It just escapes me. It'll come back to me in a second. Maybe Nuno and then remember it. The movie he did with that girl. LeBron did a hell of a job. He did a hell of a job. Train wreck. That's what it is. LeBron did a hell of a job. And I think he's going to do a hell of a job with Space Jam. Because the one thing I will give LeBron an edge, I think LeBron's a better actor than Michael Jordan. I really do. And I think LeBron's going to do a hell of a job with Space Jam. But understand what the plan was. The plan was to make the playoffs this year. The plan was to be contenders next year and march towards competing legitimately for a championship, knocking on the door of that championship. So once Space Jam came out, you own the world. But that is not what's happening right now. What's happening right now instead is that the Lakers are struggling miserably. And LeBron James is on the cusp of not being able to get anybody to come play with him in L.A. I know that everybody from Magic to Genie and everybody in between thinks that everybody wants to be a Laker. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just not true. Paul George didn't come here. Paul George has no problem with LeBron James. But from what I'm being told, his narrative was similar to what Kevin Durant expressed when he went off a few months ago about being a teammate of LeBron's. When you win, it's because of him. When you lose, it's your fault. There is no win for anybody else when you're playing with LeBron James in this day and age. May not be LeBron's fault. Nobody's blaming him for that. Might be the media. But it's the reality. And it's a reality that a lot of people don't want to deal with. And ladies and gentlemen, that's just the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We'll get back to your calls and more in a minute before the wonderful Ramona Shelburne, reporter extraordinaire for ESPN, ESPN.com. She'll be on the show with us to start off hour number 2. But again, I'll get to your calls because I got a lot more to talk about in a minute. If you haven't tried the delicious high-quality meat from Butcher Box, you're going to be blown away. From grass-fed beef to free-range organic chicken to wild-caught sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay, Alaska, Butcher Box has over 20 different cuts of meat to choose from, all raised humane. Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. Plus, the ESPN is on ESPN Radio. The NBA, rather, is on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight as Kyrie and the Boston Celtics visit Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. Presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 10 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. My honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line with yours truly. She does a phenomenal job for us covering the entire NBA. She's an absolute specialist on the Los Angeles Lakers, considering how closely connected she is to that franchise, doing an outstanding job for ESPN, ESPN.com, and everything in between for ESPN. The wonderful Ramona Shelburne is right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. How are you, Ramona? How's everything?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for that intro, man. I'm even feeling myself now.
It's well-deserved. It's well-deserved. And by the way, you can catch her on The Jump periodically with the one and only Rachel Nichols as well. Let's make sure we add that to the mix as well. Ramona, you live out here. You go to an awful lot of Los Angeles Lakers games. You have been here throughout these last several years, 5 years to be exact as it pertains to the amount of years consecutively this Los Angeles Lakers franchise has missed the playoffs. Put into perspective for all of my listeners and viewers out there, the debacle that has been taking place before our very eyes with these Los Angeles Lakers this season.
I would say it's the most disappointing season they've had since the year they traded for Dwight Howard and couldn't make Dwight Howard, Pau Gasol, and Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash work, right? I mean, that's what this year reminds me of like, you you had so much promise, and I know that this team didn't come into the year thinking they were going to win a championship, but when you have LeBron James on your team, you always think you have a chance. And then they got off to an average start, but on Christmas Day, when everyone was healthy, they were up 20 points on the Warriors, and it looked like, oh, this team actually might be good. This team actually could win. And people started to feel it again. And that's the thing with Laker fans is, like, it's been a while for them, right? Like, this is like one of the longest droughts they've ever had. Mm-hmm. And so when you give them a taste of it again and then fall flat, it really hurts. And I think, honestly, Stephen A., like, to me, the biggest feeling that I get just walking that building every night, just talking to fans, talking to even people in the organization, is this sense of, like, it's LeBron James, but they didn't feel like they really got LeBron James this year, right? Like, he didn't exactly embrace the city. He didn't do a press conference to even say hello. He didn't necessarily go out in the community and put down roots here in L.A. What he did was go out in Hollywood and make a lot of things, which is great. That's his prerogative, and he's raising his family. A lot of his time is spent watching his kids. Like, totally understood. You can do all that and not be that, you know, the guy who's rah out in the community and being that iconic guy for Los Angeles. You can do that, but you got to win. And he didn't win this year. He was hurt for most of it, and the times he was there, it wasn't the same LeBron James that people have been accustomed to seeing.
If you had to look at the Lakers with LeBron James and everything you just articulated, and I think that's a very incredible point that you brought up, to reminding us all he never had a press conference introducing him as the newest member of the Los Angeles Lakers. I think he was giving out pizzas and stuff, and that's the way he went about ingratiating himself to the LA community.
He was supposed to give out pizzas, but he didn't go to that Blaze Pizza.
Oh, yeah.
That was the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about that, Ramona. But when you look at it from that perspective, how much do people point to that, or how much are people pointing to this roster that the combination of Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson has assembled?
I think it's equal, to be honest. I really think that, you know, Magic Johnson, as you know, is a legend in this town. I mean, there was a time, and I remember when he was part of the ownership group that bought the LA Dodgers, like, I said it, and I said it with a straight face. I really think the man could run for mayor one day and he would win, right? I really think he could win for governor one day and he would win. Like, he is that beloved in the city of Angels and even in California. And I think with the Lakers, though, when you take over, okay, all that goodwill, that wins you a couple press conferences. That wins you a whole first year, right? Mm-hmm. But when you, like LeBron James, when you don't win here, and I think nobody knows that better than Magic, right? Nobody knows that more than Irvin Magic Johnson, that you can do whatever, you can be the star. You can dictate. You can run things the way you want to run them. I mean, I wrote today in the column and reminding people when Magic was in this 1981, that's his second year. He was with Paul Westhead. His third year. He's with Paul Westhead. He liked the way the offense was rolling and demanded a trade. People forget the Magic asked for a trade in a post-game locker room, and the next day Paul Westhead was fired. Like, that's how it works when you're a star in this town, right? Especially for the Lakers. That's how the Lakers treat stars. And so I think when you look at LeBron James and how he's performed, okay, you get what you want. You don't want to do a press conference. That's fine. You want to have a certain roster construction around you. You and Magic talked about that. That's fine. Same thing for Magic and Rob Pelinka. You want to draft Lonzo Ball? You want to have a roster like this? You want to not discipline LeVar Ball when he speaks out against your coach or whatever? Anything you can point to that have gone wrong on his watch, all that's fine as long as you win. And I think this roster construction, I didn't understand it at the time. There was a vision behind it. The idea being LeBron has typically played with 3-and-D guys who space the floor, but those guys had just gotten burned in the playoffs and the finals against the Warriors over and over and over again. And so if that wasn't the formula to beat Golden State, might as well get some tough guys who play defense and make plays. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, it's a concept, but they didn't get the right guys. And I think one of the biggest reasons they didn't get the right guys is because they were only going to sign people to one-year deals. So your talent pool is limited if you're only signing guys who are in a category who are going to sign one-year deals, because there's a reason why nobody else is offering them more years.
Ramona Shelburne right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. the whole Anthony Davis debacle. First of all, how do you feel that was handled? And who did you point the finger at in terms of how it was handled?
I thought it was horribly mismanaged. I mean, to be honest, some of it is just overall dislike of the Laker franchise and Rich Paul, Clutch Sports, by the rest of the league, because the Lakers are the Lakers and people have always disliked them, right? They don't like when, it's beautiful here, right? You're in Los Angeles all the time. People love the City of Angels. They love coming here to the beach where it's 72 and sunny every day. And when fortune smiles upon the Lakers, like they trade for Pau Gasol, they trade for Shaq, they trade for Kobe in the draft. They just seem to get the guy, and then, of course, they get the guy with LeBron James. So there's a lot of resentment there. There's also a lot of resentment towards Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, which I'm one of those who dislikes the resentment towards Clutch Sports. I think, that's LeBron and Rich Paul running. They've been willing to take less money to create contracts that give him leverage. And owners don't like that, okay? But that's player empowerment, and that is players trying to dictate the course of their careers. And I have always just been on the side of the player there, and I've always been impressed and respecting players who are willing to put it out there and try to determine the course of their career, because you only get one time around in this league, right? You only get a short career, even if it's 16 years like LeBron James. You want to spend it the way you want to spend it. It's just destabilizing to owners who are used to being able to have predictability, and they don't like it. And I do think there is a racial component to the dislike of Rich Paul as well. And I do think I'm probably not the right one to speak on it, but I believe that there is as well.
But let me ask you this. Why would that be the case if you have other agents who happen to be African-American, like the Bill Duffys, like the Goodwin brothers and others, who are also agents? Why would there suddenly be a racial component where it comes to Rich Paul, but not necessarily those guys?
So I think that's the right question, and I don't know. You probably have an opinion on that as well. I think some of it is that they don't have LeBron. Okay, so
that's what I think it is.
But the fact that Rich Paul is LeBron's agent and that he took a non-traditional way to becoming an agent is what I always think is the source of the agent's resentment towards him. Most of the agent community has a sort of tried and true path to becoming agents. They're sort of a predictable, path that they all work in. They will work for a big agent, and then they kind of, work their way up, and they have small clients, and then, etc. Who cares? That's your path. That doesn't have to be his path. He had an interesting path. He went to work for Nike. He met LeBron James by selling jerseys out of the back of his car. That's called hustle to me. And I've always resented the idea that you have to take a certain path. I didn't have the same path as my colleagues, right? I cover the NBA, and I jumped straight to covering the NBA from covering high schools for a lot of years. Okay, did I go work for a team? No, I mean, everybody has a different path. Okay, so I've always kind of been leery of this idea that there's a resentment, of why the resentment exists towards LeBron and Rich and everything they're trying to run. I think it's just a symptom of people not liking anyone who disrupts the status quo and doing things a different way. But I would say that most of it is just jealousy, and that he's LeBron's agent and they're not.
I got you. Ramona Shelburne right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Even though those agents would say, what is there to be jealous about? You're getting clients, but at the same time, they might look at some of the contracts that have been agreed upon, compare their contracts to the contracts that he's negotiated, and said, look at it that way. So it's a big story. I think it's something that we'll dig into as the season progresses, particularly as free agency approaches, Ramona. We're talking to Ramona Shelburne right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Jeannie Buss. Very few people know her better than you. You heard what she had to say at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference.
I did.
The media, fake news. I'm sure she wasn't talking about you directly, of course, but nevertheless, you're a member of the media. I'm a member of the media. Yep. I would have appreciated if she had mentioned the blogosphere and social media as opposed to just saying the media. But what were your thoughts when you heard what she had to say And how do you feel about it now? And did you talk to her about it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we've had these kind of conversations, and I think it's one of these stories where there have been leaks in the Laker organization before, right? You remember she famously came out and said, who leaked all this damaging stuff on Kobe Bryant? Remember that? It was a couple years ago.
Yep.
There was a big story about nobody wants to play with Kobe. And she said,
Yep.
I'm going to find out who was the leak, and I'm going to deal with it. Okay, look, whether or not the leaks came from your organization or they were subterfuged by the Pelicans or something, whatever they believe, the information still got out, and the information was still damaging. And if you don't want that information out, it is your job to make sure that it doesn't come out. Whatever that is, whether that's the way you do business with the Pelicans, whether that's the way you do business with anybody, whether that's making sure that people in your own organization are not leaking, that is the reality, and it has hurt them before with the Kawhi Leonard trade. I know how they went into this saying this hurt us in the Kawhi Leonard trade, that all of our players' names got out there, and they didn't feel the Spurs really had a good faith intention to trade him to the Lakers at all. And even if they did, it was going to be a deal that they would never do, like we trade half the team. And okay, so if that was your takeaway from that, then you have to do everything in your power not to encourage that again with the Anthony Davis trade. You can be behind the scenes trying to trade for him, but when you call Dell Demps, the condition must be that if any of this leaks, the deal is off. Like whatever you have to do, you have to find a way to tamp down on that information coming out. And it's a tough job, especially in this day and age, because, people like me and Adrian Wojnarowski, Brad Turner from the LA Times, yourself, reporters down there in New Orleans, Chris Haynes, the former collegeman, we're good reporters. We dig. We find things out. And It's not always coming from you. But that's the era that we live in. And there's franchises and trades where, we didn't really hear about the Porzingis trade before it came out, did we? Okay, there are trades that get done like this, and somehow this is if this isn't what's important to you, this is how you have to do business. And those are the facts. Like whether or not you can do anything about it is kind of just a function of this modern world, right?
How much of this lends itself or speaks towards the novices, and I say that respectfully, of Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson, only from the standpoint, Magic Johnson's never been a president of basketball operations before. This is his first go-round. Rob Pelinka, a lifelong agent in the business, has never been a GM before. He has to pick up the phone and apologize to an abundance of agents for the relationships that he was able to cultivate, that he didn't cultivate over the years. You've got teams who refuse to talk to him. They would only talk if Magic Johnson spoke to them because they didn't want to speak to Rob Pelinka. So considering that level of inexperience that exists with the combination of Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka, how much culpability do they have for how things have been handled and how things have gotten out?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, and I heard you talking about that on LA radio yesterday. I thought you were right on the money with it. They got the two biggest and best jobs in the NBA, and I think there's been a little lack of self-awareness about how many other people wanted those jobs when they got it, right? I mean, who would not want to be president of the Los Angeles Lakers? Who would not want to be general manager, right? Like, especially in LA with like the young core they had started to build. I mean, this was, as you know, back when they got the job, it happened real fast. Okay, there wasn't like an audition for anybody else. Like Jeannie fired her brother and fired Mitch Kupchak and hired Magic right away. And he hired Rob Pelinka right away. And there was a lot of people who were hoping they were going to get a shot, and were trying to get a shot even as the wheels were turning on the move she did make. And so when you walk into a situation where the rest of the league resents the fact that you got that job, and you got that job without the experience that we just talked about with Rich Paul, like you didn't have the same background as they did, right? You didn't put your time in. You don't haven't paid your dues. Like in a lot of ways, the Laker job is a job that you should work for 3 other organizations before you get it. Like that's the one you graduate to. Like, I didn't start working at ESPN. You didn't start your career at ESPN. This is the big leagues, right? So there's that kind of resentment there that I don't think they've handled yet. And they both have gone about it in different ways. Rob obviously met with a lot of agents when he first took the job and tried to like mend some fences and tried to make everything cool. Magic Johnson is he's Magic, man. He's a charming guy. Have you ever seen him work a room? Like, he's an incredible, charismatic personality and human being in this world. And I think he just has been able to charm his way through pretty much anything and then play his way through anything, right? When you're a player, it doesn't matter if people don't like you. You just play and you win. And the problem for them so far has been, like, it's not a basketball court. You can't just charm your way through it. You can't just, like, get something because you're Magic. And I do think that's a factor here in the way things have run.
Ramona, do you think that this relationship with Magic and Pelinka is going to last beyond this season, this summer? Because I don't know if Pelinka is going to last. I really don't. I'm getting to that point where I don't know if he's going to last here as a GM of the Los Angeles Lakers. What are you hearing?
I'm not hearing anything per se. What I can tell you is I can describe what I can tell you. I think Magic really likes Rob, and I think Magic and Rob are together, right, in the sense that he's the one he has a really good working relationship with him. And I think if you understand how Magic operates, like, it does make sense as a pairing. Magic's still a celebrity, right? He's still traveling around the world. He's still a businessman. Like, this isn't his only gig. And so you have a bandwidth issue, right? He doesn't have the bandwidth to dig into every single detail. He operates in a lot of ways kind of like an owner. Even though Jeannie Buss is the owner, like, she oversees everything and she's there every day in the office. Magic in a lot of ways operates like an owner who, has hired a basketball person to do a lot and to do all the daily grind. And that's Rob Pelinka's job. And so Rob is the one who's making those calls. But I think, as you described, the issue is that the teams that are dealing with Rob may have an understanding that Magic is going to make the final call and may just want to talk to Magic. They may just prefer to negotiate with him. And then I also think, Jeannie Buss, when she was turning to somebody to change the franchise, right? Like, she wanted to fire her brother. That was a big thing. That was like going against what her dad had set up. That's a big thing to do. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she turned to the man in her life who has always been like a brother. All that was totally understandable. And it's only been 2 years. Like, he got LeBron James. This year went off the rails because they had a lot of injuries, because they insisted on getting guys with 1-year contracts. Like, I don't see this coming apart after this year, but I do think you're right in the sense that if they don't get anybody this summer and you basically have to try again next year, if they don't make any big trades, if they don't make any big signings, boy, that pressure is going to be a lot. Well, and I don't know what will happen after that.
Ramona, that's where I'm going with one of my final questions to you. I'm thinking about this summer, and I'm thinking about a free agent class. You got about 7 or 8 free agents, at least 5 marquee. And it is entirely possible that not only will the Lakers and LeBron James end up with none of them, but that at least one, if not 2, could end up going to the Clippers. So for me, what I find myself wondering about, Ramona, is this. Number one, who do we look at if that happens, LeBron or Magic? And B, is Magic long for this? Because he does have other options and doesn't necessarily need this headache.
Yeah, I mean, Magic's even said it, right? You remember last year before they got LeBron where he said, if we don't get 2 free agents over the next 3 summers, like, I'm out. Remember, he put himself in the same position Jim Buss did when he put a timeline on this. And I think some of that is just kind of him being real, saying, like, I'm a star and I have to deliver. Like, he put that pressure on himself for a reason, because he wants to deliver. He's a big game guy. That's his DNA. But I could see him, if he doesn't pull it off, if they have another season like this next year with, like, let's say they don't get anybody, they make a trade or 2 that either works or doesn't work, LeBron gets hurt again, any number of things can happen where next year is just as bad as this one. I could see a scenario he doesn't stick around, but that's me speculating based on knowing him and his previous comments. I don't want to say that as a reporter, okay? Because all those aggregators out there go crazy. Right. And then I think the pressure on LeBron too. I mean, he's 34 this year. He had the most serious injury of his career. I think this is a little underrated when we talk about LeBron, but Space Jam's coming out in 2020, right? Summer of 2020?
I brought it up. In the first hour of my show. Yep.
He cannot afford to have another season like this next year. And I don't want to be too hard on him because LeBron James has been incredible for this league. And he has been an incredible ambassador, a human being, philanthropist, social justice warrior. Like, you get to have one off season where you get hurt. Like, that happens. But he did not embrace the city of Los Angeles outside of his Hollywood endeavors. He didn't necessarily put down roots. Like, he kind of brought with him a few people from Cleveland, and that's like, in other words, I already have my friends, right? And, the only visuals you've really seen of LeBron this year that have sort of made the rounds have been him not playing all that much defense, of drinking a glass of wine as he walks into Staples Center and having lunch with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Like those are the visual images. So, okay, it's his first season. Things happen. People understand. But I think if next year goes poorly, if the Clippers get two max guys and the Lakers just kind of seem like, they're back to an aging superstar in their midst who doesn't have the same equity that Kobe Bryant had when he was at that stage in his career, it's not going to be good.
That's right. And not only that, I mean, to me, there's a legitimate question, and I'll end it by asking you this question. There's a legitimate question in my mind. LeBron will never cheat us with effort. LeBron will always show up. He will always take care of himself. He will always be ready to play so long as he's healthy. I have no doubt about it. But there is something to be said about the zest and fervor of the game. To go to Miami and to have that. To come back to Cleveland and to definitely have that. One of the things I paid attention to is Rich Paul and Maverick and others continuously saying he's already done it all. His legacy is established. Is it possible that may rob LeBron of the urgency to do exactly what we're alluding to that he needs to do over the next 3 years in L.A.?
I think that's the right question. I'm kind of asking myself the same thing. And I want to say this. You're a very successful person in your career, correct?
Yes, that's what they say.
One of the things that you have learned is that it's hard to get on top, but it's way harder to stay on top. And I think somebody like LeBron knows that better than anybody. And so you have bandwidth issues when everybody wants to a piece of you, right? And everybody wants, when you take on more, when you build your business empire, when you build your Hollywood career, when you build your activities off the court, when you take on a lot, you have to compartmentalize it, but you always have to remember that your bread and butter is basketball. And I think knowing LeBron the way that I've come to understand him, you've come to know him, I would be surprised if he didn't give and have an incredible season next year, or at least try to.
I agree.
Knowing how important basketball is and still needs to be to his core brand. And it's not going to look good for him if his Space Jam is coming out in 2020 and they're coming off another missed playoff. It's not.
No question.
And he's coming off another big injury. But the big question is, he'll be 35 next year. You can try all you want, but sometimes your body doesn't cooperate. So let's see.
That's right. Ramona, keep up the great work. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen A.
Take care. The one and only Ramona Shelburne, ESPN reporter extraordinaire, right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll get back to your calls and more in a minute. Don't touch that dial. It's Stephen A. ESPN Radio. ESPN News. By the way, if you haven't tried the delicious high-quality meat from ButcherBox, you're going to be blown away. ButcherBox brings you meat the way it's meant to be, so you can get all of the benefits you're supposed to get. Unbelievable flavor and unparalleled nutrition. They work closely with the best farms and companies committed to raising animals humanely. From grass-fed beef to free-range organic chicken to wild-caught sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay, Alaska. ButcherBox has over 20 different cuts of meat to choose from, with customizable boxes and a variety of other options to choose from. And ButcherBox comes at an affordable price. With free shipping, you can get a month's worth of the best-tasting meat from ButcherBox for less than $6 a meal. ButcherBox is offering my listeners free ground beef for the life of your subscription and $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Don't miss out on this special offer at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V.
Learn what affects your credit scores and what you can do to improve them with Credit Karma. Maybe you need to dispute an error in your credit.
There aren't grown men on the Los Angeles Lakers. It must be a bunch of kids, because why would you feel the need to try to come to their defense like that? This is professional basketball. This is professional sports. These individuals signed on to get paid to do a job. They're getting paid for it. Who doesn't know that trade rumors are not going to be a part of it? We all know that years down the road, some 30 for 30 documentary is going to come out, and we're going to be talking about this or that, and it's going to be revealed, yeah, the reports were true, but we couldn't admit it at the time. It happens all the time. Jeannie Buss was wrong to call that fake news. She's still wonderful, though. She really is. But she was wrong to call that fake news. That's not fake news. And other than LeBron, who wouldn't you give up for Anthony Davis? It's an absolute mess in L.A. In all likelihood, because we have an abundance of individuals ill-equipped to handle the drama, and a superstar in LeBron James that's incapable of exercising a level of patience required to surround himself with that. He's going to still get his numbers. He's going to still do what he does, but he can't help himself by saying stuff that's ultimately going to be viewed as taking shots at players. And I'm not accusing LeBron James of doing that intentionally. I'm saying that sometimes you can't help yourself. Speaking in defense of yourself, inevitably it's going to come across as you pointing the finger at somebody else's. And you might not be cognizant of it, or you might not care. Now, LeBron being as brilliant as he is, I find it hard to believe that he's not cognizant of it. But some would argue he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to tell you why he necessarily doesn't in a minute. But I understand those who are tempted to give it to him anyway.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. The power to save is in your hands. Snapshot from Progressive rewards your safe driving with discounts. Find out more at Progressive.com. Thanks again to the great Ramona Shelburne, reporter extraordinaire for ESPN, ESPN.com, and then some. Absolute expert on the Los Angeles Lakers, right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Los Angeles Lakers on the verge. It's pretty much official as far as I'm concerned. Got about 18 games left, but they've lost 5 of their last 6. They're 5.5 games out of the 8th spot in the Western Conference. They're 4 games under 500. They'll miss the playoffs for the 6th consecutive year. From 1948, when they were the Lakers in Minneapolis, to 2013, the Lakers franchise has missed the playoffs 5 times over a period of 65 years. They've missed the playoffs the last 5 years, and it will be 6 officially in about a week or so, if not less. Carlton, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, my brother.
Stephen A., I have never in my life seen two guys less self-aware than when I happened to be watching LeBron James and Antonio Brown on his TV show or HBO show, The Shop.
I haven't seen it, Carlton, just so you know. I've heard about it, but I have not watched it yet. Tell me what you took from it.
I haven't seen the entire episode, but I've seen the promo clips that they're putting out there. And when Antonio Brown starts to talk about how he felt like Big Ben Roethlisberger had the mentality of an owner, when Big Ben just pointed out, and maybe it was an unfair criticism, but wanted Antonio Brown, remember, to run a flatter route or whatever when Roethlisberger got picked off against the Broncos at the end of the game, and that started their losing streak, and that was one of the biggest blow-ups that the two of them have had, this past year. That's the one he points to all the time. Big Ben Roethlisberger criticizing Antonio Brown. Well, LeBron James is like, oh, that's so horrible and so forth, that Big Ben does that. This from the guy who has thrown more teammates under the bus the last 3 years than anyone in the entire universe. And yet he's willing to mock Roethlisberger making a single-play criticism of Antonio Brown. Do you know who had the worst plus-minus last night in the Lakers-Clippers game?
I think it was LeBron.
It was LeBron James, okay?
Yeah.
Of all the players on the damn court, he had the worst plus-minus of any of them at -11. In their 3-8 stretch since LeBron came back, and I'm only counting the games he played, there was one game after he came back that he sat out. I think it was against the Golden State Warriors there early on when he came back. But in those 11 games that the Lakers have gone 3-8, LeBron James is a cumulative -20 points in those games. In only 4 of those games has he been plus. In only 4 of those games, when LeBron's been on the court, has the Lakers scored more points than the opposition. LeBron James has a worse three-point shooting percentage in those 11 games than his season average. So in a time when he's supposed to step it up, he's gone backwards. He has a worse free throw percentage in those 11 games than his season average free throw percentage. He plays almost no defense in these last games, and I've seen a large fraction of those 11 games, the entire games. He has many times been standing around while players are running right by him, and he has not hesitated to throw everybody under the sun under the bus for why the Lakers aren't winning.
Well, I got to tell you this. Being at the game last night against the Clippers, he showed a lot of defensive effort. He tried. The reality of the situation is that there are times where you can get a bit demoralized because you're surrounded by people who just ain't good enough, and you're smart enough to recognize that, and that really rakes your nerves, and it really, really beats you down. That's not to excuse the times when he's pointing the finger at his teammates. It's not to excuse the times when he's throwing them under the bus, just complaining publicly and demonstrably as well. Nobody's trying to excuse that. But, again, being the great player that he is, there have been times when you're on the court and you're just looking at guys and it's like, my goodness, they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad right now.
Oh, so the fact that they're pretty bad affects the fact that he can't hit free throws. It affects the fact that
not at all.
He launches three-pointers and isn't hitting his three-pointers.
No, not at all.
And we've seen clip after clip the last couple of weeks, and you've had him on your first take show, of him standing there while players just blow right by him, because he really doesn't play defense most of the time. I do agree in the last couple of games he's tried to step it up a little bit. But
yes.
Let's now move on to Antonio Brown. Do you realize Antonio Brown wants to move on from his existing contract? If I'm the Steelers, I would give up a 7th-round pick to get rid of Antonio Brown. I'm dead serious, Stephen A. They don't want him back. They've already said they are willing to take a $21 million dead cap hit, because that's the dead cap hit they're going to get when they move him this year.
Yes.
They're going to eat $21 million. They want him gone. His teammates want him gone. He's obviously, verbally attacked Tomlin. He's verbally attacked Big Ben Roethlisberger. He can't be on the team going forward. But other teams are saying to themselves, I'm not giving up anything for this guy. He won't play under his existing contract, Stephen A.
Well, you know what? Then that's a problem, and he's going to suffer. I got to run, Carlton, so I appreciate the call, but he's going to have to figure out something, because I think he's hurt himself by opening his mouth the way that he has about Big Ben, about Tomlin, about the Steelers organization. That's not going to endear him to another team that wants to add somebody to their squad. As great as he is, I think he's hurt himself.
Right.
All right, appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're live at Stephen A. ESPN Radio. Your calls to close out the show in a minute. If you missed any of today's show, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in 5 minutes. Capital One, hey, what's in your wallet? Your calls to close out the show in a minute.
The new ESPN app, now with ESPN Plus. Baseball hot.
Lakers, they're going to make playoff, boy. You understand me? You need to stop. They're going to come get touchy on down there.
Shaq, why do you do this to me, man? Why do you do this to me, man? Why are you always doing? Why you always making fun of me? Jerome, it's not Uncle Jerome. He's such an idiot, man. What's going on, man? What's going on, you fool? You fool. Shaquille O'Neal, ladies and gentlemen, calling into the show. Seriously, Shaq, do you think the Lakers going to miss the playoffs?
I hope they don't miss the playoffs. I like the young Lakers. Right now they're 4 games out. Maybe LeBron and the crew can pull it out.
If they don't pull it out, Shaq, what do we get to say? What do we say about the Lakers if they don't pull us out?
If they don't pull it out, everyone knows that LeBron will have a 1-year grace period. All right. After this, LeBron's going to have to do some recruiting. Him, Magic, and Rob, they're going to have to do some recruiting. And then hopefully they can get a better squad next year. But the young guys, this should be a lesson to them. This is L.A. We expect you to win, so you got to step your game up. Everybody got to step their game up.
Here's the trick. Here's the $64 million question, Shaq. Because I've been focused on LeBron and the ability to recruit. I have no problem looking at him this year. I don't want him pointing fingers at other cats when he's the one missing defensive assignments, but that's about it. Outside of that, listen, he's LeBron. Here's my thing. If he gets no one with all of these free agents available, if he gets no one to come to L.A. this summer, Shaq, what are we supposed to think then?
Well, I think he will be able to get someone. Listen, it's L.A. Nightlife is there. Everything's there. Magic's there. Somebody's going to want to come play with him.
Okay.
Will we get a top-name player like Kawhi and KD? We don't know. But listen, the AD thing is still not, out of commission. Summertime, I'm sure Rob and, Rich and all those boys, they're going to be trying to make some moves. So he will get somebody. I know he will. Might not get 2, but he'll definitely get 1.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Proud sponsor of the 2019 John R. Wooden Play of the Year Award. Plus, need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. Nick, you're live with Stephen A. Go real quick, Nick. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen A.
How are you, sir? Go ahead.
I'm doing well. Hey, I just want to talk to you about Landon Collins, man. I don't understand what the Giants are doing.
Neither do I.
He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, first-time All-Pro in 2016. He's our leader, our captain, probably one of our best defensive players. Not only is he young, but he played through injuries when our team is not good. Like, what is going on?
Well, they can still sign him. They can still sign him. It's not like he's gone, but he has he's looking forward to free agency, and he's going to have some options. And I don't understand, if you're the Giants, why would you open yourself up to giving him that option? Doesn't make much sense to me.
It doesn't. And I don't understand why, like you were saying earlier when you opened up the show, if they're going to let him just walk, why didn't they take any of the picks that they were getting offered before the trading deadline?
Doesn't make any sense. Appreciate the call, man. Doesn't make any sense. Thanks a lot. Let's go to Jamel. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick. Go ahead, Jamel.
How you doing, Stephen A., man? Big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, LeBron, man, I think he kind of overplayed his hand, man, this year, looking at the West, thinking he could just come over there and turn it off and on like he did in the Eastern Conference. The West is much, much better with a lot of better players and a lot of better teams. So with that being said, I wonder, is he kind of second-guessing his choice to come to the West?
Listen. I think he came here for things that are far more expansive than just playing basketball. He wants to go Hollywood. He's a producer. I mean, he's an actor. He's a businessman. And he sees an opportunity to do some things out here, and I think he plans on capitalizing off of it. That's why I think he's out here. But in fairness to him, when he was healthy, they were a top 4 seed in the West. And on Christmas Day, they were up by 20 on Golden State before winning by 27. I mean, they were rolling, and it just hasn't been the same since he got hurt.
I kind of agree with your former partner who said he was kind of out in L.A. chasing Michael B. Jordan instead of Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Okay. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, that's entirely possible. But the reality of the situation is that he got injured. And missing out on those 18 games transformed the Lakers from a playoff contender to an embarrassment. And it's just that simple. And when you look at it from that perspective, I don't know how you get around it. All right? Appreciate the call. Maurice, you're live with Stephen A. I only got a minute. Actually, 40 seconds. Go ahead.
Make it quick, Stephen A. That piece of you and Shelburne was the proof Bible. But real quick, I did watch the Sharp last night, and right next to LeBron was guess who? AD. So I really think he might be coming to the Lakers, but I think LeBron overestimated his hand. And what legacies like Jerry West, legacies like Magic and Kobe, homegrown, LeBron got to get 1 in 4 years.
I will tell you this. I don't think Anthony Davis is coming to the Lakers this summer. I don't think the Pelicans are going to cooperate. They're going to make him go somewhere else and then go from there to the Lakers, costing him in excess of $50 million. I think that's what's going to happen with Anthony Davis. I think that's what's going down, and it's going to be really interesting to see what transpired. I got to get on out of here. But I will be back in 22 hours because obviously there's a lot to discuss. And the Lakers play the Nuggets tomorrow night as well. Whole bunch of NBA stuff is going on and NFL as well. Until 22 hours from now, everybody, peace and love.
Hey, what's up?